Hello YouTube. I'm just going to go on a short rant against the political leadership in this country. I can't help but feel a certain way towards them. They will come up with any excuse to blame you, blame us, for the current downward trajectory the country is headed in. They are going for the good old-fashioned divide and conquer strategy. Young and old Americans have more in common than they realize, but they want to use divisive rhetoric to keep the power of the people divided. Let's discuss our youngest Americans first. Now, I just want to say there are Americans of all ages who lack a work ethic. This video isn't for them people. As for the rest of us who have eyes and ears, living and experiencing the current daily reality of American life, I just want to explain what I see. The elites will blame you for getting a secondary education. As many Americans can attest to, that diploma that comes with a secondary education isn't leading to the bright future that was promised to them. The wealthy will then say, well, you should have known better and saw the writing on the wall. You should have invested your time in a trade school. However, decades down the road, when the physical labor and the physical stress of those trade jobs catches up with your body, and you're dealing with chronic pain throughout your body and you have to file for disability, they're gonna grandstand and they're gonna gaslight you and tell you, well, you should have paid more attention in high school. You should have gotten a diploma at a university, and then you wouldn't have to put your body through all this stress of the physical labor. If you can't find traditional work and have to rely on a gig job of some type, they're gonna say, you aren't gaining meaningful experience. You're going to put wear and tear on your car. That time would be better spent going to company and physically giving them your resume. Or they're gonna say it's so easy to fill out applications nowadays. You can just sit down in the comfort of your home and fill them out. They even give interviews online now. I don't get what all the belly aching is about. The 20s are when most people typically think about having babies and starting to raise children and starting families. However, nowadays people are increasingly opting out of having children, and the leaders of this country are going to blame American society. They're going to say, well, if there are not enough children, there aren't going to be enough people that are going to pay into our social programs. Once again, to continue the theme of this video, they're going to blame the youth. They're gonna say that young people aren't investing enough time into good careers that can support your family. They're too scared of social interaction. They're spending too much time staring into a screen instead of forming personal bonds. And instead of doing the hanky-panky, they're just isolating themselves inside of their homes. But then let's look at the other side of the spectrum for a moment. For the people that do have kids, they find out that they don't have the money to properly take care of them, to give them a good education, to pay for those extracurricular activities after school, to pay for their health care, to pay for good, healthy meals. They're gonna say, well, you should have thought about that stuff before having kids. The elites in this country are going to lament, the youth aren't using the best years of their lives, their prime time, to get a healthy start to their careers, to start families and lives. They're going to say, well, they're in for a rude awakening. They claim that Marxist social values are responsible for the destruction of the American nuclear family, when the true culprits for that destruction are the elites who are demanding that everyday Americans prioritize their time to the companies that they work for, increasingly with a diminishing return for that time, instead of investing the time with their loved ones. Now, I'm going to address our middle-aged folks, which I'm just gonna say are like, for this video, from 30 to 50 years old. Now, I know the shortcomings of our healthcare system affect Americans of all ages, but I just figured I'd cover this topic since most people begin to start experiencing problems with their health starting in their 30s. When they realize they need to go see a doctor, the first issue that they encounter usually is, how do I pay for the medical services? And typically, those medical services are paid through insurance. Most of the time, the access to health insurance is tied to whether a person is employed or not. This is when the gaslighting first starts. They will say, well, you're going to need to get a job. However, millions of Americans work in jobs that aren't full-time. Perhaps they may even work in multiple jobs. It's part-time and it doesn't come with the benefits of health insurance, and then the elites will say, well, you're going to need to get a full-time job. Okay, well, now that they have a full-time job, the issue is that the monthly amount that they take out is astronomically high, so they had to choose not to take the health insurance, or the benefits aren't that good, and then when the employee learns that their particular medical situation isn't covered by their medical insurance, the bourgeoisie are going to gaslight you again and say, well, you should have done your research on the job, you should have gotten a job that has better benefits, and then after you find a full-time job with the benefits, with a quote-unquote reasonable monthly payment, the issue is going to be, oh, the health insurance covers 90%, but the procedure that your wife had was open heart surgery, and that procedure was $100,000, and yeah, it covers 90%, but that still means that you still gotta pay $10,000, and they're gonna gaslight you further and tell you that's why you should have gotten the secondary insurance. You should have gotten the supplemental insurance. I ask, when is this gaslighting going to end and we all come together as a country and a society and realize that there is something really wrong with our healthcare system and that there needs to be change and there needs to be reform? When will we stop accepting the lame-ass excuses they give us for why our health system takes advantage of us during our most vulnerable time? Now let's go ahead and discuss home ownership. The elites are going to explain that home ownership is the ultimate creator and keeper of wealth, and that is how Americans jump from the lower classes and gradually rise up in society. They look at the baby boomers as an example. The rich and powerful will say, well, they did it. They bought a house for $20,000 and now the house is worth $400,000. The same can happen to you. But let's say somebody else does buy the house. Nowadays, it's typically late 30s when people buy their first house. And I'm sure you have seen the videos on YouTube or some other social media platform where they explain that the houses are like 5-10 times what a person makes in a single year nowadays. Whenever there is a crisis within the housing market, prices come down and they lower the interest rates. But lowering the interest rates are just going to boost inflation. And let's say you got a good home for a good price and low interest rate. You gotta worry about the home insurance, and that's becoming prohibitively expensive because of all the natural disasters occurring in the United States. Now let's say you luck out on price, interest rate, insurance, then they're gonna screw you over with the obnoxiously high property tax. The local government will do a reevaluation and determine that the property tax needs to go up by 50% over a span of 5 years, and in many instances at a higher percentage in a shorter amount of time. They just seem to always be some type of obstacle in the way of people getting a home. But according to the wealthy and the elites, the reason why people aren't getting homes anymore is because they're not willing to work with it. They're being lazy. It's because they're not doing something right. Finally, I do want to speak about our older Americans. If they have the privilege of reaching 65 years of age, it's time to consider retirement. Some people have a pension, others have a 401k, while others will have to rely on Social Security. While our government kicks the proverbial can down the road of refusing to face the challenge of Social Security insolvency in the coming years, or they'll just go ahead and stick their dirty hands into the people's entitlements, they are going to say, you knew this was going to be an issue for years, this is on you if you didn't prepare for it. Sympathetic people know life happens. However, the elites will come up with whatever excuse they need to justify their insatiable greed. Oh, you spent 10 years on drugs instead of contributing to a 401k? You spent 5 years in prison? You spent your youth as a stay-at-home housewife? Oh, you had cancer? I don't care if you overcame your addiction, beat your disease. Lack of retirement is your loss. How long before you start seeing these politicians tell your grandparents, hey, you spent 50 years gaining valuable experience in the American labor force. Time to show these lazy grandkids how to pull yourselves up by the bootstraps and start clocking back in. You should be grateful. A lot of people at 70 can't walk. Time to use this blessing bestowed upon you by the Lord our God to help supplement your income. If you can't walk, there are plenty of jobs out there where you can sit down. Many Americans are finding themselves in a position where they are in their 60s or 70s and they don't have a proper education. They don't have a resume that is going to pass these AI applicant tracking systems. They were never able to afford a home and generate wealth for themselves, and that they're going to be beyond physical exhaustion and come to a horrible realization they should have invested in a 401k. Their company didn't provide a pension, or maybe they did, but now that company is gone and out of business, and at this age, you are very lucky if you don't have to see the doctor on a regular basis. And if you are indeed part of the vast majority of elderly folk that need to routinely see a doctor, they are discovering that they don't have the financial resources to seek the proper medical treatment, and therefore a comfortable life that our older folk deserve. I hope the examples that I've given during this video make y'all think about the realization that no matter what age you are going to have to fight the exploitation, the unrealistic promises and expectations, and face the gaslighting and grandstanding delivered onto us by the elites of this country. Now, once again, I do just want to get this out of the way and say that you need to do your part. You do need to use your money wisely. You do need to live a healthy lifestyle. You need to spend time with friends and family and grow those special bonds that you have with them. However, when will we stop letting the elites of this country gaslight us and grandstand us into submission, and take back power and hold the billionaire and political elites accountable? Thank you for listening to this video. Feel free to share your opinions below. And as always, thank you for your attention to this matter.